And welcome back. Tonight we're going to continue our look at the major and minor prophets with one of the minor prophets, who is Obadiah. And this is a very short book. It's 21 verses long. And so we're going to look at all of it tonight. We're going to look at it in a different translation than normal, just for legal reasons, but also I think some of the translation is slightly better in at least one of the verses here. And so we're going to use the WEB, or Web Bible. It's a public domain translation. It's not as good generally, I don't think, as the New King James, but it's pretty good, and it's based on the American Standard Version, but not quite as good as that, but in more modern English. So we're going to look at this book of Obadiah, talking about the downfall of Edom, and we've placed it in this time period during the captivity from 585 to 555, somewhere in there, but that could be wrong. It could fit in almost anywhere before or after the captivity, depending on how you understand some of the things that are said. Some things are past tense, some things are future tense, so it's a little difficult to know where Obadiah fits in, but let's just look at the message of it. But before we look at the message of Obadiah, let's just take a look at this principle from the law of Moses in Deuteronomy 19. In verses 18 through 21, he talks about a false witness. Once they prove that someone has testified falsely against his brother, verse 19, then you shall do to him as he had thought to do to his brother. So you shall remove the evil from among you. And so that's going to strike fear into people. If they were trying to have someone put to death, then they are put to death, and so on. And so that's the idea here. You shall do to him as he thought to do to his brother. And I just bring that in because there's a certain statement in the book of Obadiah that I think has that direct idea with it. But as we start Obadiah, in verses 1 through 4, it says, the vision of Obadiah. This is what the Lord Yahweh says about Edom. We have heard news from Yahweh, and an ambassador is sent among the nations, saying, arise, and let's rise up against her in battle. Behold, I have made you small among the nations. You are greatly despised. The pride of your heart has deceived you, you who dwell in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, who says in his heart, who will bring me down to the ground? Though you mount on high as the eagle, and though your nest is set among the stars, I will bring you down from there, says Yahweh. So as we see this beginning of the prophecy, it calls it the vision of Obadiah, like Isaiah's prophecy is all called his vision. It's not a vision in the sense we normally think of as a vision. He's not going to describe something that he's seeing. He's just giving the words of the Lord. It's just a prophecy, but it is called a vision. And this is a vision particularly about Edom. Now, it's not going to be all about Edom, but that's primarily who it's about. This is the nation that descended from Esau, the brother of Jacob, as is going to be mentioned in this. And so it's about Edom, and it's against Edom. The nations are going to rise up against her in battle. And God says it's because of their pride. They think that they are not able to be defeated. They're dug into the rock where they live. And God says, I will bring you down wherever you are, however high you are. In verses 5 through 7, it says, if thieves came to you, if robbers by night, oh, what disaster awaits you. Wouldn't they only steal until they had enough? If grape pickers came to you, wouldn't they leave some gleaning grapes? How Esau will be ransacked, how his hidden treasures are sought out. All the men of your alliance have brought you on your way even to the border. The men who were at peace with you have deceived you and prevailed against you. Friends who eat your bread lay a snare under you. There is no understanding in him. So he says, now, if you were robbed, you'd still have something left. If grape pickers came through, they'd leave something on the vine. But when God gets done with them, there's going to be nothing left. Even the hidden treasures are sought out. And so he says the ones who are going to do this are the ones who are at peace with them, their friends who eat their bread, the ones who have an alliance with them. They are going to be the ones who turn against them. In verses 8 and 9, it says, "Won't I in that day, says Yahweh, destroy the wise men out of Edom and understanding out of the mountain of Esau? Your mighty men, Timan, will be dismayed, to the end that everyone may be cut off from the mountain of Esau by slaughter." So he says that God is going to destroy the wise men, which is going to get rid of understanding. And then the mighty men are going to be dismayed, and then everyone is going to be slaughtered. So if you get rid of the wise, then who is going to lead in strategy and battle? You don't have anyone to lead. And so it doesn't matter how strong you are if you don't have any strategy of how you're going to defend yourself. And so God says, I'm going to cut off the wise, then the mighty men are going to be dismayed, and then everyone is going to be slaughtered. That's how it's going to work out. And in verses 10 through 14, he talks about the reason for this. So he says, "For the violence done to your brother Jacob, shame will cover you, and you will be cut off forever. In the day that you stood on the other side, in the day that strangers carried away his substance, and foreigners entered into his gates and cast lots for Jerusalem, even you were like one of them. But don't look down on your brother in the day of his disaster, and don't rejoice over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction. Don't speak proudly in the day of distress. Don't enter into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity. Don't look down on their affliction in the day of their calamity, neither seize their wealth on the day of their calamity. Don't stand in the crossroads to cut off those of his who escape. Don't deliver up those of his who remain in the day of distress." So we see that he says he's going to do this to them because of the violence that they have done to their brother Jacob, to Israel, to Judah. And he says, you're going to be cut off forever because of this. And he says that he talks like this is something they have already done. In verse 11, you stood in this other side when the strangers carried away his substance, entered into his gates, cast lots for Jerusalem. So that's pretty clearly focused on the fall of Jerusalem. And he says, you were like one of them, one of these foreigners that were casting lots for Jerusalem, even though this is their brother. And he says, don't look down on your brother in the day of his disaster. Now, in the New King James, it says you should not have, but apparently that's not a good translation here from what the commentators say. This is more accurate here. It's more future tense. And so as part of it, he talks about it like it's already happened. Part of it, it's almost like it's in the future. And so one idea is that this is looking at something that has happened and looking to the future at what's going to happen to Jerusalem in the future. That is going to be destroyed again. I don't know if that's the case, if that was the point here, but that is a possibility anyway. So they were glad when Jerusalem fell, and God is saying, don't be like that. That's not how you're supposed to behave. That's not how you're supposed to think. And you're trying to cut off all of those who remain. And so in verse 15 and 16, he says, "For the day of Yahweh is near all the nations. As you have done, it will be done to you. Your deeds will return upon your own head. For as you have drunk on my holy mountain, so will all the nations drink continually. Yes, they will drink, swallow down, and will be as though they had not been." So he talks about now that this is not just Edom that's going to receive judgment, but all the nations. We've seen that in other prophecies, God judging the nations as a whole. And he says that this is the day of the Lord, the day of Yahweh. It's near all the nations. And he says, as you have done, it will be done to you. And now, Judah was not completely cut off. But, of course, they were trying to do that. That's what he said in the previous verse. You were trying to cut off all those who remain. And so he says, as you have done, it will be done to you. If we think back to the law that we read in Deuteronomy, even if someone did not accomplish what they were trying to do, but what they tried to do to their brother would be done to them, I believe that's basically the idea here. They're all going to be wiped out because of what they tried to do to God's people, to Jerusalem and the people there. In verses 17 and 18, it says, "But in Mount Zion there will be those who escape, and it will be holy. The house of Jacob will possess their possessions. The house of Jacob will be a fire, the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble. They will burn among them and devour them. There will not be any remaining to the house of Esau. Indeed, Yahweh has spoken." And so he's contrasting how he's going to treat Mount Zion and how he treats Esau or Edom. And we have that when we get to the book of Malachi as well, this contrast between how God is treating these two nations. But he says in Mount Zion, there will be those who escape. That's not going to be true for Esau. There will be none remaining for them. He says the house of Jacob, the house of Joseph is going to be a flame, and the house of Esau is stubble that's just going to get burned up. And so the Jews are going to destroy them. We see this at least partially happening during the time of the Maccabees, during the 400 years of silence, although there were still some who seemed to be descendants of Edom. Even King Herod is an Idumean. The Idumeans at least are from the area of Edom. I don't know if they're literally descended from them or not. But today, I don't think you can find anyone who is descended from Edom. Certainly not that anyone would know. When you look at verses 19 through 21, it says, "Those of the south will possess the mountain of Esau, and those of the lowland, the Philistines. They will possess the field of Ephraim and the field of Samaria. Benjamin will possess Gilead. The captives of this army of the children of Israel, who are among the Canaanites, will possess even to Zarephath, and the captives of Jerusalem, who are in Sepharad, will possess the cities of the Negev. Saviors will go up on Mount Zion to judge the mountains of Esau, and the kingdom will be Yahweh's." All right, these are the last verses of Obadiah. And so he talks about those of the south and those of the lowland. These are parts of Judah. And he says they're going to possess the mountain of Esau, which was neighboring to them, and the Philistines, which is also neighboring to them on the other side. So they're going to possess all that land. They will possess the field of Ephraim, the field of Samaria. That's the northern territory where the northern kingdom of Israel was before. So Judah is going to control all of that in this picture. Benjamin will possess Gilead. Remember, Benjamin was together with Judah. And now Benjamin is going to possess Gilead. That's on the other side of the Jordan River. So they're going to take that part of the land. And the captives of this army of the children of Israel who were among the Canaanites will possess even to Zarephath. And that seems to be talking about the people from the northern kingdom who are in captivity. They're going to be part of this as well, going all the way to the sea. Zarephath is, if I understand correctly, a city that was around Tyre and Sidon, so towards the coastline. And the captives of Jerusalem who are in Sepharad, and nobody really knows what that is, it doesn't seem like, will possess the cities of the Negev. That's the lower country, the southern part of Judah. And so saviors will go up on Mount Zion to judge the mountains of Esau. So this is when Esau is going to fall, and the kingdom will be Yahweh's. Now, in this picture, they are recovering their territory and even getting more territory than they had before the captivity. And it seems like this is something that is never going to be fully fulfilled physically. And this idea of the saviors going up on Mount Zion to judge the mountains of Esau, that could be a reference to the Maccabees. That's what a lot of people think it is. But again, it's still not going to really be fulfilled completely until the new kingdom, the spiritual kingdom. And this is a picture of God's people who may be persecuted and all of that, but God is going to give them victory, give them their land, and the kingdom is going to be Yahweh's. It's going to be the Lord's. And that's the important thing, that we understand. God wins in the end, no matter what nations may stand against him, no matter what, how strong these kingdoms are that go against his people. They may capture them. They may try to wipe them out, but they will fail. There will be survivors remaining. And among God's people, but among those who try to destroy them, there will be none remaining in the end. The kingdom will be Yahweh's. And so this is a beautiful picture, a beautiful vision of what God is going to do spiritually in the church with all of his people, the saved that trust in him, and what he's going to do to those who rebel against him and refuse to submit and try to destroy his people. Very, very similar picture to what we find in the book of Revelation, in Daniel, in other places, but it's an important picture, a very short picture, but an important one. That's the lesson this time. We went through every verse of Obadiah, and hopefully you have a little bit of a better understanding. All right, thanks a lot.